All right, as Kristen said, save the best till last. Medicaid is a scintillating topic, especially after all the grants and other money talk. So I'll try to show you some slides, give you some information that I think will be helpful and useful, whether or not your particular charter school chooses to seek funds recovery through the Medicaid program. There are a couple different ways to do that here in Indiana, that schools can claim Medicaid reimbursement for activities that your staff routinely perform. The first slide shows you some rule language from Indiana's Article 7, which is the special education rule, and it talks about the state laws and rules, which mirror federal laws and rules, that allow schools to claim Medicaid reimbursement for covered services that they provide to students with disabilities. So where you're providing physical, occupational, speech therapy, those kinds of services, nursing services to a student who is Medicaid eligible, and you have a clinician at your school that meets Medicaid's criteria to provide those services that are covered by Medicaid, the school can bill for those. As long as the school obtains the parent's consent to do so. So here is the rule language about the parent's consent, what's required to obtain that initially. You have to give informed notice. You have to give notice, ahead of time, inform the parent, and obtain a signature that you have obtained informed consent after providing that kind of information up front about the parent's rights and responsibilities. Once you obtain that consent from the parent, you do it one time for your particular school or school district. If the child moves to another school or school district, then that new consent would have to be obtained. But your school would obtain it once, and then once you obtain that, you are obligated to inform the parent at least annually of those rights and responsibilities pertaining to the Medicaid consent. Basically that it can't cost the parent or the child anything for the school to be billing Medicaid. So the use of those funds comes into question now and then. These are unrestricted federal dollars that come to the school district and are recovered basically because you have already expended state and local dollars in order to provide services or administrative activities to help students with medical needs. I'll get into the administrative claiming a little bit later. But this is another section from Indiana Special Ed Rule, Article 7, that discusses the use of these funds and whether or not they apply when you're calculating your maintenance of effort for special ed purposes. They do not count toward MOE. It says so right there in the rule. So if you have questions about how to use the funds, how to receipt or account for expenditures of these funds, those go to the Office of School Finance and IDOE's Department of Finance. And there is information in the saved version of this PowerPoint that will be made available to all of you so that you can click those links or paste those emails into your email address blank. Examples of covered IEP-required services that you provide as a related service under a student's IEP are audiology, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language therapy, mental health care, that includes evaluations and treatment services in all cases. Same for nursing care that's provided by a licensed registered nurse. Can't be provided, well, you can have an LPN or an aide providing nursing services. Can't bill those to Medicaid. Medicaid will only pay the school if it's provided and needs the expertise of an RN. So in addition to claiming for these medical care services, the school could also claim for specialized medically necessary transportation of a student with a disability who's receiving another IEP-required covered Medicaid service on that same day. As I mentioned, there are two types of Medicaid claiming in Indiana that's available to school. One is Medicaid administrative claiming. So rather than claiming, doing sort of medical billing kinds of things for medical direct services provided by a licensed qualified clinician, the school can claim match money from the federal government through the Medicaid program for services that you provide that are administrative supports, such as your school nurse sits down and talks with parents about students' needs and how to meet them at school. The school partners with a community mental health center to triage students, either to bring community mental health center clinicians into the school to provide mental health services, or to link students to care outside of the school. Let's say your school has a health fair night or a Medicaid sign-up night. Time like that, organizing those activities, meeting with parents, calling physicians and other caregivers on the phone, partnering and doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff to do that, informing parents about the availability of Medicaid services and benefits and how to access those and apply. All that time is time that could be matched with Medicaid dollars if you want to participate in the IndianaMAC Medicaid Funds Recovery Program. Okay, so because you're a public school entity, you're a public entity that could participate in that. In Indiana, we keep clear, bright lines around these two different kinds of Medicaid claiming. They're based on totally different reimbursement methodologies. You go about claiming using different software and hardware and systems, and in some cases different contractors. So these are separate things that reimburse for separate activities and services. There is a lot more information on this available, and I'm not going to get into that right now, but I'll show you where. Examples, I already gave these, of Medicaid administrative claiming activities for which you could pull down federal match dollars are on this screen. And there are school-friendly materials accessible for all of you on the IDOE's Learning Connection called Medicaid in Schools community. And there is also school-friendly information. I'm going to speed forward here for a second and go back. On IDOE's public website on the school-based Medicaid page. You can get there from the Office of Special Education page, clicking the school-based Medicaid link, or use this link and paste it into your browser. On the public site, there is a toolkit that talks about each type of IEP-required medical service and how you go about arranging for billing that. And the Medicaid Billing Guidebook is sort of a general overview of the whole process and concept of Medicaid claiming by schools. Now I'm going to go back for a second. Even if your school doesn't participate in Medicaid claiming at all, there are resources available in the Medicaid in Schools Learning Connection community that may be of assistance to you in helping students. So there are files there and folders where you can find resource directories and referral guides and program benefit assistance information there about low-cost and no-cost services, other programs and departments that can assist kids with unmet needs. When you think about going there and doing some Medicaid claiming for school services and administrative activities, the best way to incorporate that into your daily activity is not to create special forms and have special processes, but to build it into your existing systems, forms, processes, day-to-day business operations. Then you will have what you need, because you have to capture most of it anyway to meet special ed compliance criteria. You will have what you need to strip out the information and provide it to a contractor that can help you claim Medicaid reimbursement. There's information in the toolkit and in the Medicaid Billing Guidebook about questions to ask those kinds of contractors if you want to interview them and request proposals from them. You will have my contact information if you want to call me and quiz me about ideas on that. We don't recommend any particular contractors, although the state does make available to you systems and technical support for the Medicaid administrative claiming program. Public Consulting Group offers a web-based system that we use so that all schools can participate in this together and not have to have their own separate methodology and system to track Medicaid administrative claiming. There are several different medical billing agents that are available and working with schools in Indiana. Everybody offers a different set of services and systems and pluses and minuses, so we leave that to schools to investigate on your own. If you want to do that, a good place to start is the School Corporation's Medicaid Reimbursements report that's available on IDOE's public site. You can take a look and see which districts have been claiming for a while and have some experience in that area, and maybe call some colleagues there and pick their brains about the pros and the cons and who they use and why and the hassles associated and the benefits. So this is what it looks like in terms of the IEP reimbursements when schools claim for IEP-required medical services, and then there are the last 3 pages of this report on the IDOE's public site also offers information about who's participating in IndianaMAC and how much they're pulling down on a quarterly basis in recoveries from the federal government on that. Where else can schools find information if you want to compare what's going on in Indiana to other states, or just to sort of double check that what you're seeing on our site is the norm and accurate? You can go to the National Alliance for Medicaid in Education. Here's some information on that organization, which basically was formed by a lot of people who do what I do for a living. There aren't very many of us, but there are a couple in each state, and over time folks have found each other and come together and tried to work with our federal counterparts and our state agencies and legislatures on smoothing the road a little bit for these atypical school providers of Medicaid services, so that we have policy and procedures in place that allow schools to do what Congress fully intended for schools to do, and that is go get those dollars if that makes sense for you to do that. So there's my contact information. Tracy Brunner, school-based Medicaid specialist with the Department of Education, Office of Special Education. Let me know if you have questions that you want to pose right now, and I'll try to answer those, or contact me at the department and we'll talk. If you want to bill Medicaid for IEP-required services, there are many hoops that you have to jump through with the Medicaid agency to become a Medicaid enrolled quote-unquote provider. So your school is then enrolled to bill Medicaid and to submit claims. I don't know of any school in the state, and very few in the country in fact, that find it worth their while to try to do that without hiring a contractor with specialized knowledge and systems and expertise that stays up on that sort of thing, because it's a very specialized. I'm not sure I could fill out a claim form and get it through the Medicaid system successfully every time. So that's something else that you probably want to look into, is how you would set that up business operations wise. On the MAC side, there are a few steps that are involved with contacting the state's contractor, Public Consulting Group, providing your school calendar, a list of people who perform the sorts of activities that are reimbursable, who happen to work on your staff, so those can be added to the statewide pool of people who are studied at random. They receive an email every once in a while that asks 5 questions, and they have to respond to that online, and that data is what's used to determine the percentage of time that's reimbursable, and goes back to each district according to your local, state, and local tax dollars. Is there another question? Thank you for hanging in there and bearing with us today. There's a lot of material thrown at you. Call me. Thanks.